Another edition of the In the Mind of Haize segment. The first one that's actually going to be posted on the Breaks Media YouTube channel. Um, my dog Leo may make an appearance, may not. I don't know. He's kind of hovering around the studio. But the first thing that we have to talk about during this segment is update on the Jussie Smollett case. We'll definitely be talking about it as well on the Breaks Radio. So make sure you guys go and you check out the Breaks Radio, which drops every Friday. You can catch us live on WTMHradio.com. Fridays from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. I try to have the podcast version up by 7 p.m. Eastern if you guys missed the live feed. But as far as the Jussie Smollett case, so it looks like two brothers were arrested in the case. The cops actually arrested them in Chicago, questioned them. There was reportedly video footage found of those brothers buying the rope that was ultimately tied around Jussie Smollett's neck. You would think that would be an open and shut case then, right? No, they were actually released after being questioned. And apparently they said that Jussie paid them to stage this whole thing, which we've all heard since the beginning. It's been called a ploy by the left because he mentioned MAGA hats and turned out to be two actually Nigerian brothers, I believe. So they were colored, so they weren't actually white. And so this whole thing now is getting real interesting because Jussie Smollett has hired a defense attorney. He still denies that anything was set up. He denies any wrongdoing. So far, at least as of this recording. So it's funny because you would think with the evidence that was found, the cops in Chicago definitely had to have some evidence that's called into question this whole case. And I'm trying to stay on the facts here, but just to think, you find two people, you see evidence of them buying the rope that was tied around his neck, questioned them for hours. They admitted it through suspicion towards Jussie's way. So what does that say? That makes you think that they gave some damning evidence to make it believable that Jussie Smollett may have set this whole thing up. And that's where we get into a problem. Because if this is the case, and again, I'm going to keep saying allegedly right now until anything's proven one way or another, but if what's alleged is true and Jussie did set this whole thing up, imagine how much harder it's going to make it for anyone else who's gay or homosexual or LGBTQ or black in this case as well. Like, imagine how hard it's going to be when something really does happen to believe them after such a high profile case, if this is ultimately turned out to be a complete setup and false. And that's where it pisses me off, because everything that people go through, we don't have time for any shadow of a doubt to be thrown on it. And as sad as it is to say, when cases like this happen, it does make the public hesitant to believe the next time accusations like this come out. And if this is proven to be something that Jussie set up, I fully 100% believe he should be prosecuted to whatever the extent of the law could be. That's my personal belief. If it's found out that he was lying, I don't really have an opinion right now, a hard one at least, because just looking at everything, I do think that there had to be something to make the cops question it. Period, point blank. You don't have a suspect. You don't get the type of evidence they did. You don't question them and then just release them without bail, anything else, without something being there to make the cops question this whole thing. So these brothers were actually, or one of them was actually on Empire before. Jussie Smollett has commented that it made it even more disturbing that it could be done by somebody he knew. But again, I go back to them being released. So we're going to keep monitoring it. Again, like I say, and I will admit, I can't say one way or another. My opinion fluctuates between believing them and not believing them. Of course, social media has taken it and run with it, of course, as they always do. But hey, it is what it is. What do you guys feel? I'm asking the listeners, the watchers, what do you guys think? Do you think Jussie Smollett is lying? Do you think this whole thing has been a fabrication? What do you guys believe? Because as it stands right now, I'm leaning towards believing that Jussie was lying, just to be 100% honest, but I can't say that that's wholeheartedly true either. So, and keep monitoring it. Like I said, he's hired a defense attorney, which makes it even more questionable in my opinion, but we'll continue to see. But the next thing that we're going to talk about, this is the last topic we're actually going to talk about in the Mind of Haize segment. Anyone who's watching this, you can go and check out the podcast. It's the Awakned Soul Podcast on every podcasting platform. That's for the watchers. But for the listeners, we're going to go ahead. We're going to keep going. So the state of emergency declared by Donald Trump. He called a state of emergency to get his wall built. And so, as we know, the government shutdown was avoided because he signed a $1.3 billion spending deal that, it has that provisions for the border wall. But in the state of emergency, if this is all going through, it will actually redirect $3.6 billion from a military construction fund, $600 million from a Treasury Department drug forfeiture, and $2.5 billion from a Pentagon drug prevention program. So those are what he's using to fund this wall if it can go through. And so after this state of emergency, after he addressed everything, he did bring in questioning from the media, in which he almost instantly went on the attack. And so, Jim Acosta, he called fake news from CNN. He mentioned that this will probably go all the way to the Supreme Court, but he's confident that it will eventually get passed. And he even compared it to the travel ban, which only got approved on its third version. So he's obviously in this for the long run. But what I want to address here is a lot of the false information that was given. So in this, he did mention how most drug trafficking is actually caught at Border Patrol, which is actually false. Or in between Border Patrol, and that's false. Most of it is caught by the security that we already have at the border. So you'll see a lot of articles that attack a lot of, and Google it. Go and Google it. They give a lot of statistics. He even mentioned how there were 20 people shot less than a mile from where he was in Texas at one point. It was actually over 100 miles from where he was. So as we see Trump do, he uses the media and he uses information. He kind of twists it to fit his current agenda and what he's doing. He really, it's to appeal to his base. And even there are Republicans who aren't quite in agreement with all this. We'll see how it goes. This whole border thing, ultimately, what it boils down to me is he didn't get his fucking way, and he's acting like a big ass baby about it. That's my opinion on it. It's silly to redirect this much money, and basically what he used is that the spending deal that he'd agreed to. He basically used that to see where the finances were going, and then use that to redirect in his state of emergency. So you got to stay aware, people. That's all I'm saying is you got to stay aware. You got to know what's going on. But I want to know, do you guys agree with this border wall? I know most of my audience does not. If you do, I would want to hear from you more. So email me, theawakenedsoulpod@gmail.com. You can also utilize that voicemail, 614-547-2039. You can text as well. But that's it. That's it for the In the Mind of Haize segment. Like I said, I'm trying to keep everything short because we got a hell of a show planned for the watchers on YouTube. You don't want to miss this discussion topic this week with the Unruly Creative. So make sure you tune in for that. The Awakned Soul Pod. You can catch it on every major podcasting platform. That's it for the In the Mind of Haize segment. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take a break. When we come back, you're going to be hearing the unpopular opinion from the one and only P.Y. Tiana.